Tonight on Live from the Theater Basement, our correspondent Jamie Stanton talks about diversity in the theater with NAU professor Dr. Christina Gutierrez-Dennehy. How are theater companies becoming more diverse? What types of diverse programming are theater companies offering today? NAU theater professor Dr. Christina Gutierrez-Dennehy tonight on Live from the Theater Basement.
Experience an elevated senior living lifestyle at The Bluffs in beautiful Flagstaff, Arizona. Imagine an intimate and authentic retirement lifestyle enhanced by custom-tailored 5-star quality service in an upscale community at the edge of a picturesque mountain. The Bluffs in Flagstaff, Arizona.
I'm your host, Jamie Hassafis. Tonight, Jamie Stanton talks with NAU theater professor Dr. Christina Gutierrez-Dennehy about diversity in the theater, here on Live from the Theater Basement.
Thank you, Jamie. Hello, I am Jamie Stanton, current intern and correspondent here at Live from the Theater Basement and Theatrikos. With me today is my guest who has a doctorate in performance as public practice from the University of Texas at Austin. She is also an assistant professor at NAU's Department of Theater, and she recently directed NAU Theater's production of The Tempest. Please welcome Dr. Christina Dennehy.
Hi.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited. So from the beginning of the Tempest production, you expressed a desire to have an anti-racist play. And the Tempest, as it is written, has some problematic aspects. Can you give us an overview of those aspects, assuming that the audience has at least a little knowledge of the story?
Sure. So I'm assuming that folks know a little bit about The Tempest. It is a story about European folks who wind up on this island somewhere, either in the Bahamas. There's some scholars who think it might be the Americas. We're not quite sure. But they show up and they take over. And one Italian in particular, Prospero, decides that this is his island. He gets to subjugate everybody on it. He gets to rule it. And there's never really any punishment for that. He is redeemed at the end. He's the hero of the play. And it's something that's always bothered me. The Tempest was the very first Shakespeare play I read. I was 10 years old. It was the thing that hooked me into Shakespeare. And I've always wanted a thing or a production that kind of solved some of the issues of The Tempest, but kept this notion of magic and play and kind of fun that is also in the play.
Right, yeah. That makes sense. I didn't know about The Tempest before recently when I was researching it for NAU Theater's production. When you began the process from very preliminary rehearsals or maybe even before casting, what were your general goals for the production?
Yeah, so as a director of color, one of the things that I try to do is to hold space for as many artists of color as I can. That's been my goal kind of from the get-go. And I think Shakespeare is an interesting space in that it is a colonial space, it's an incredibly white space, but it is a space that is incredibly important to theater history and also just to kind of the professional theater world. So one of my goals is to see how we can hold space for folks of color within this really kind of problematically white and colonial and racist space. So I was hoping to cast as many artists of color as I possibly could, hoping to really focus the story on those islander characters, the native characters whose island gets taken over by this white colonizer, and to really kind of flip the script on how the play itself imagines colonialism as like this progressive thing that is great. In our version, that wasn't true. Prospero winds up punished. He loses power. He loses the island, and that story was the one that I was hoping to tell, and to really again just kind of explode Shakespeare. I like to talk about whenever I do Shakespeare, this is not your grandmother's Shakespeare, and so that's kind of what I was focused on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a different story than what I would assume the intended story of The Tempest is when you first read the script.
Oh yeah.
As we all know, theater is a collaborative process. I was wondering what did everyone involved do to aid in the goal of an anti-racist production, specifically the actors, the designers, the rest of the creative team?
The great thing about directing at a university, and in particular a university like NAU, is that we are all on board for these anti-racist, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice initiatives, as much as we can be. And so as we were programming this season, we were looking for a play that was going to kind of pull us back into this grand notion of in-person theater after COVID. And the magic of The Tempest does that. But I said from day one, season selection, you know, we need to be able to approach this from a different lens. We need to be able to tell not just Prospero's story, but the story of these islanders who got their space taken away from them. And so it wasn't even a question in early production and design meetings. Everybody was on board for telling that story. So we were looking for ways through the set, through the costumes, through eventually when we brought the actors in, to really focus this play on Caliban in particular, and Ariel to an extent as well. So from an acting perspective, obviously I was trying, as I said before, I'm trying to bring in as many artists of color as possible. From a scenic design and lighting design perspective, and this goes with costumes as well, one of the things we were trying to do is highlight the fact that the magic comes from the island. And it's the island characters, Caliban and Ariel, who are really the ones who have magic. So that came into highlighting the way in which the rocks on this island kind of light up and become this source of magic. The way Prospero's staff is only magic when it's connected to the island. So all of us are thinking through kind of how do we use all of these design elements to tell that story.
That's really interesting. And because theater is so collaborative, if you want to tell Shakespeare in a different way, everyone has to be on board. So it's
100%.
really great that you got that.
Yeah.
In the production, you chose to lean into the racial imagery in regards to Caliban. He was given faux locks, a pleather wrap skirt, and he was played by a person of color. And additionally, there were several moments in the play where he crawled along the stage. Can you explain why these choices were made for your production?
Yeah, so Caliban's entire character was kind of developed in collaboration with that actor, Jeremiah Montgomery. He and I were working to find this really authentic notion of who was Caliban before any contact with any Europeans, anybody. So we did a lot of research into Native South American tribes, Native African tribes, just to kind of find, you know, what is pre-colonization Caliban. The hair was a long discussion with that actor, as well as the costume designer, who's also the hair and makeup designer, Jennifer Peterson. Again, just kind of looking for an authentic notion of pre-colonial blackness and what that looked like. It was important to Jeremiah to distinguish Caliban's movement across the stage from Prospero's, that he has grown up on this island amongst all of the kind of animals on this island, that he is the only human character that's been on this island since his mother died years and years and years ago, and that he's kind of adapted himself to this island. And we really wanted to bring out the distinction between Prospero and Caliban. One of the things that we were playing with are the moments when Caliban stands up to Prospero and kind of challenges Prospero and shows us, hey, I know how to do this. I know how to walk like him. I know how to talk like him. I know how to be just as kind of that notion of powerful as Prospero is. But I choose not to. This is my way of life. This is how I choose to live my life on this island. And so that whole process, again, was a big collaboration. It was really important to me that Jeremiah and I kind of come up with this together.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So now that the run has ended, is there anything that you would do differently? Do you think that you entirely succeeded in making an anti-racist production of The Tempest?
I don't think any production that takes place on a university campus that has, you know, as all university campuses do, their own issues with racism and systemic oppression. I don't think we can ever hit, like, that was absolutely anti-racist. I think that we did what we could with the resources that we had. One of the things that I'm real sad about is that we had planned to have this kind of huge conversation among a bunch of different departments at NAU: biology, anthropology, history, cultural studies, all of these different departments, thinking about this narrative of colonialism and the narrative of whiteness that Shakespeare really leans into. Unfortunately, we had some COVID cases in the company and wound up having to push opening back, which kind of deleted all of the programming that we wanted to. So if I could do it again, I would really want to kind of open those broader conversations in a more like actual lived way of actually bringing other scholars in and having conversations.
Making it even more collaborative.
Yeah, exactly. And outside of the theater itself too.
Yeah, I love that. I hope that in the future we are able to have those conversations with as many people as possible. Well, thank you so much for being here on Live from the Theater Basement.
Thanks, Jamie.
Harkins Movie Theaters, showing newly released first-run movies for Northern Arizona. What's playing now? Check it out on www.harkins.com. Get your tickets today and tell them Live from the Theater Basement sent you.
Correspondent Jamie Stanton, great job, Jamie. And NAU theater professor Dr. Christina Gutierrez-Dennehy, live from the theater basement. Producer Linda Cetera. Engineers Sam Bradbury and Matt Brewer. Oh, producer also, Jamie was producing this too. Technician Ava Haynes. Associate producers Virginia Brown, Joe Maniglia, and Michael Rulon. Correspondents Mackenzie Chase, Bailey Cunningham, Jamie Hassapis, Lynn Timmons-Edwards, Sel Wasson, and Jamie Stanton. Crew Bailey Cunningham, Sam Dickman, Jeremy Haynes, Angela Keith, and Justin Moscow. Dramaturgy, Theatrikos Artistic Committee. Play curation, Northern Arizona Playwriting Showcase. Executive producer, Chris Barrell. Live from the Theater Basement, streaming live on Sunday evenings at 7:30 p.m. and available wherever you get your podcasts, is a production of Theatrikos Theatre Company in partnership with Northern Arizona Playwriting Showcase and Deuteron Films. Theatrikos Theatre Company, Flagstaff, Arizona, is the theater company of Northern Arizona and the Grand Canyon, embracing the spirit of Broadway with shows like Steel Magnolias opening March 25th. Live from the Theater Basement, the weekly podcast streaming show from Theatrikos Theatre Company alternates between 10-minute short plays and interviews with Arizona arts leaders. If you, as a listener, have input, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theater@theatrikos.com. Live from the Theater Basement, streaming live on Sunday evenings at 7:30 p.m. and available wherever you get your podcasts, is funded in part by Creative Flagstaff, formerly Flagstaff Arts Council, and Arizona Community Foundation. Additional funding from Arizona Commission on the Arts, Flagstaff 365, BBB revenue of the City of Flagstaff, Calf Country Radio, and patrons of the arts like you. Thanks for joining us for Live from the Theater Basement. This is Theatrikos. Coming up next week on Live from the Theater Basement, the 10-minute play, What They Call Evolution, by Doug Mclaughlin, directed by Lisa Jane. Young Dog, Amy Lucas, Old Dog, Tony Sotera, and at this play, an old dog and a young dog discuss neediness, morality, mortality, and people. One will learn a hard lesson.